Early 2026, the Caribbean Sea was shrouded in the smoke of war as U.S. forces intervened in Venezuela. Meanwhile, Thailand, along the banks of the Chao Phraya River, sought breakthroughs in Sino-Thai cooperation through a state visit to China. The destinies of these two regions became intertwined. One side grappled with turmoil fueled by hegemonic plunder, while the other embraced opportunities for win-win collaboration. This stark contrast profoundly reflected the evolution of the global geopolitical landscape and the prevailing currents of the era. January 2026. Caribbean Sea. The scent of gunpowder carried by wind and waves swept across Venezuela's coastline. The roar of a U.S. military helicopter shattered the dawn's tranquility. Ropes dangling beneath its doors swayed in the morning light before vanishing behind the dome of the presidential palace. At the same moment, thousands of miles away along the Chao Phraya River, the golden spires of Bangkok's Grand Palace glistened in the morning sun. King Rama X, fresh from his state visit to China, convened an emergency cabinet meeting. Spread across the table lay copies of a cooperation agreement, where the words China-Thailand joint construction stood out prominently. Why did two nations, separated by the hemispheres, face pivotal turning points in their destinies at the same moment? What outcome would the landing of U.S. helicopters bring to Venezuela? What far-reaching decisions were brewing in the Thai king's emergency meeting? This intertwining of destinies across the globe concealed a deeper geopolitical struggle. This tense standoff did not emerge suddenly. Since early September 2025, the U.S. military has frequently intervened in the Caribbean Sea and Eastern Pacific under the pretext of combating transnational drug trafficking, launching wave after wave of strikes against what it termed drug trafficking vessels. In the frigid waters, not only do shipwrecks drift, but the cost of human life is steep. By January 2026, over 100 people had perished in these operations. Yet, when the international community demanded concrete evidence, the U.S. failed to produce a single legally valid proof. Their so-called anti-drug justifications proved as insubstantial as sea foam, easily shattered. Notably, the previously circulated claim that Venezuelan opposition leader Machado would receive the Nobel Peace Prize in October 2025 ultimately proved to be nothing more than baseless speculation, with no authoritative information to substantiate it. The relentless pressure from the U.S. military had long since shattered the Maduro government's bottom line. From the presidential palace, Maduro addressed the nation through national media channels, his voice hoarse yet resolute, calling on citizens to unite as one to resist external threats. Throughout the streets and neighborhoods, crowds waving national flags gathered for rallies, their cries of defiance rising in waves to form a torrent of resistance. The Maduro government swiftly activated a series of defense countermeasures. While rumors of mobilizing 4.5 million militiamen lack authoritative data, the Venezuelan people's resolve to defend their homeland is already etched on every face. At this moment, the South American continent resembles a taut bowstring. The hope for peace hangs precariously under the U.S. military's extreme pressure, while the clouds of war grow increasingly dense. Many wonder, why does the U.S. fixate so intensely on Venezuela? The roots of this entanglement lie buried in decades of history, and oil, that resource dubbed the lifeblood of industry, holds the key to unlocking the puzzle. Some have drawn this analogy: pirates plunder gold and silver treasures, while the U.S. military's gaze remains fixed on oil, the black gold. Venezuela stands like a nation cradling a golden rice bowl, boasting the world's largest proven oil reserves. This unique resource endowment has made it a must-have target on America's path of hegemonic expansion. Looking back to the 1990s, Venezuela was once America's close ally in South America. While the oil industry was nominally state-owned, the actual operational control and substantial profits were firmly grasped by American oil giants like ExxonMobil and Chevron. These multinational corporations extracted vast profits from Venezuelan soil, while the nation itself earned the moniker Saudi Arabia of South America due to its abundant reserves, becoming a crucial pillar for U.S. influence in the region. Though superficially harmonious, this relationship harbored latent tensions. The fragility of this partnership lay in the fact that the immense wealth generated by oil never truly trickled down to ordinary citizens. Like a tilted scale, a small elite class and foreign capital monopolized all the benefits, forming a solid interest group that controlled the core of the nation's political and business spheres. When oil prices soared, they reaped the rewards. But when prices plummeted and the economy faltered, they unhesitatingly shifted risks and conflicts onto the people, allowing poverty to engulf countless families like a tidal wave. During the most difficult times, 70% of Venezuelans lived below the poverty line, struggling to make ends meet. This extreme wealth disparity is starkly evident in the capital, Caracas. On one side, affluent neighborhoods shimmer with lights, lined with mansions and villas, boasting complete infrastructure and a life as comfortable as paradise. While on the other side, the slums are shrouded in darkness, plagued by chronic power and water shortages. Countless people are forced to build makeshift shelters from corrugated iron and cardboard on hillsides. These densely packed shanties resemble patches stitched onto the mountainside, their dire living conditions heartbreaking. This stark contrast felt like a thorn deeply embedded in the hearts of Venezuelans, sowing the seeds for future change. In 1998, Venezuela's destiny reached a turning point. Hugo Chavez, a former military officer who had survived a failed coup attempt and 2 years in prison, entered the presidential race bearing the scars of his struggles. His campaign slogan was direct and powerful: share the oil wealth with all the people. This message struck a chord with the impoverished masses, like a beam of light piercing the darkness, swiftly rallying massive support. That December, Chavez won the presidency by a landslide. Upon taking office, he pushed for constitutional amendments, renaming the country the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. Bolivar, the 19th century leader of South America's independence movement and liberator of the Americas, embodied the spirit of independence that Chavez sought to signal Venezuela would break free from external control and truly take charge of its own destiny. Chavez did not disappoint the people, swiftly launching deep reforms in the oil industry. In 2001, the new petroleum law was enacted, stipulating that state-owned oil companies must hold at least 51% of shares in joint ventures with foreign capital, firmly securing control. By 2007, reforms intensified as the Chavez government directly nationalized the Venezuelan assets of several foreign oil companies. This series of measures struck like a sharp sword, directly wounding the interests of American oil giants. Companies like ExxonMobil had no choice but to withdraw from Venezuela. From that point onward, U.S.-Venezuela relations fractured completely, transforming former partners into adversaries locked in confrontation. From the U.S. perspective, the interests of oil companies were core national interests, making Chavez's reforms an unambiguous provocation. What infuriated Washington even more was Chavez's implementation of a series of populist welfare policies, channeling oil revenues into social programs providing living subsidies to low-income groups, establishing a free healthcare system, and advancing universal compulsory education. These policies proved a timely blessing, effectively reducing poverty rates and sustaining Chavez's high approval ratings, enabling him to win multiple terms by landslide victories. A legitimately elected president steadfastly pursuing an anti-American path directly challenged U.S. hegemony in South America, solidifying Washington's resolve to contain the Chavez government. Beyond this, Chavez actively built an anti-American alliance. He forged a deep friendship with former Cuban leader Fidel Castro, supplying Cuba with cheap oil for years. Simultaneously, he proactively strengthened ties with Iran and Russia, vigorously promoting the concept of 21st century socialism across South America while championing the banner of anti-imperialism, anti-colonialism, and anti-hegemony. At the September 2006 UN General Assembly, Chavez made shocking remarks, referring to the U.S. President George W. Bush, who had addressed the assembly the previous day as the devil, using this term 8 times throughout his speech. He also loudly proclaimed "Yankees go home," shocking the entire international community. At the 2009 Organization of American States Summit, he publicly read from the book The Open Veins of Latin America before a crowd of journalists. This work profoundly exposed Latin America's history of exploitation under colonialism and imperialism. After reading, Chavez presented a copy to then U.S. President Barack Obama, using this gesture to express his strong dissatisfaction with American foreign policy. Chavez's anti-American stance made him a thorn in the side of the United States. In 2002, the U.S. covertly orchestrated a coup against Chavez. However, the coup unfolded like a farce, collapsing after just 2 days. With popular support, Chavez successfully regained power. This failure made the U.S. realize that as long as Chavez remained in power and oil revenues sustained his social programs, his rule would be difficult to topple. Left with no choice, the U.S. temporarily retreated, patiently waiting for a more opportune moment. On March 5, 2013, Chavez passed away at the age of 58 due to cancer. While the U.S. State Department issued a condolence statement, it likely secretly rejoiced at this opportunity. Yet the U.S. never anticipated that Chavez's chosen successor, Nicolas Maduro, would prove even more unyielding than his predecessor. Maduro, a former bus driver with no higher education, possessed a rough appearance and lacked Chavez's fiery rhetoric. Many initially viewed him as a transitional figure. Yet Chavez had offered a telling assessment, perhaps not the most brilliant, but absolutely the most reliable. History would prove Maduro true to Chavez's vision. After taking office, Maduro not only continued Chavez's core policies but also intensified related measures. Yet fate seemed unkind. In the latter half of 2014, international oil prices plummeted dramatically, crashing from over $100 per barrel to around $40. For Venezuela, whose economy heavily relied on oil exports, this plunge felt like a devastating storm. It directly caused a sharp decline in state revenue, leaving the government unable to sustain its previous welfare policies. Prices skyrocketed like rockets, and the economy quickly plunged into recession. All of this provided the United States with an opportunity to act. In 2015, the Obama administration initiated sanctions against Venezuela. After Trump took office in 2017, the sanctions intensified dramatically. In 2017, U.S. citizens and companies were barred from trading Venezuelan sovereign bonds. In 2018, U.S. businesses were completely prohibited from any commercial dealings with Petróleos de Venezuela (PDVSA). In 2019, the U.S. directly froze all Venezuelan government assets in the country, amounting to over $7 billion. This series of sanctions formed an airtight net, aiming to completely sever Venezuela's oil export channels and destroy its economic system. The consequences of these sanctions were devastating. In 2018, Venezuela's inflation rate skyrocketed to 1,300,000%. Note: 1,300,000%. Not 130%. Supermarket shelves were stripped bare as if ravaged by locusts, and citizens struggled to obtain even basic food and medicine, leading to a rapid deterioration in living conditions. By 2019, over 4 million Venezuelans had been forced to flee their homeland, migrating to the United States. Perceiving the timing as ripe, the U.S. began plotting further intervention. In January 2019, Juan Guaido, then 35-year-old president of the National Assembly and opposition leader, abruptly emerged to publicly challenge the legitimacy of Maduro's election results, unilaterally declaring himself interim president of Venezuela. This act was nothing short of absurd. How could the Speaker of the National Assembly unilaterally invalidate the legitimacy of an elected president? Yet, surprisingly, as soon as Guaido made his declaration, the United States immediately recognized his status as interim president, followed by over 50 countries including the United Kingdom, France, and Germany. This was not diplomatic intervention. It was blatant incitement to a coup. Fortunately, the Maduro government did not collapse. The Venezuelan military remained loyal to the legitimate government. And despite difficult living conditions, many citizens continued to stand with Maduro. In May 2020, tensions escalated further. A group of armed mercenaries attempted to infiltrate Venezuela by sea, targeting Maduro for kidnapping. But as soon as they landed, they were surrounded by Venezuelan forces. Ultimately, 8 were killed and over a dozen captured. Maduro subsequently appeared on television to publicly display the seized weapons and equipment, openly mocking the U.S. for orchestrating the most failed coup in history, his words dripping with contempt. Some might wonder, Venezuela is just a small South American country. Why would the U.S. go to such lengths? The answer is simple. For the U.S., it's all worth it. First is the allure of oil resources. Venezuela holds proven oil reserves exceeding 300 billion barrels approximately, 17% of global reserves and the world's largest. Though extraction costs are high, as the lifeblood of industry, its strategic value is immeasurable. More crucially, the U.S. cannot tolerate other nations encroaching on its backyard, South America. Losing control over Venezuela would open the door for external powers to intervene, a scenario the U.S. finds unacceptable. Second is the geopolitical consideration. Located in northern South America and bordering the Caribbean Sea, Venezuela is just a few hours' flight from the U.S. mainland, a strategic neighbor right at America's doorstep. In 2018, Russia dispatched Tu-160 strategic bombers to Venezuela. These nuclear-capable aircraft function as a sort of Damocles hanging over the U.S., signaling Russia's clear intent, should the U.S. dare to use military force against Venezuela. Russia would deploy strategic deterrence assets to America's periphery. Finally, there is the ideological conflict. Venezuela's 21st century socialism model, despite its practical shortcomings, resonates deeply in Latin America due to its core anti-American and anti-imperialist principles. The United States seeks to utterly destroy Venezuela, forcing it to pay a heavy price as a warning to other Latin American nations. Those who dare defy America will meet a grim fate. These three factors intertwine, driving U.S. intervention in Venezuela toward increasingly extreme measures. Following his second inauguration, Trump significantly escalated pressure on Venezuela. He not only signed executive orders authorizing the Department of Defense to develop contingency plans, but also deployed warships along Venezuela's coastline, frequently conducting ship bombing operations and seizing sanctioned vessels. While the U.S. consistently claimed to target drug traffickers, it never produced conclusive evidence. The confrontation culminated in the early hours of January 3, 2026 as reported by CCTV News when U.S. forces launched a large-scale military strike against Venezuela, forcibly detaining President Maduro and his wife before transferring them to the United States. The situation escalated from sporadic naval strikes to direct land intervention, intensifying tensions across the Caribbean. In truth, this military strike had been meticulously planned. Earlier, Trump had confirmed authorizing covert operations within Venezuela, while the New York Times reported that his administration had developed multiple military contingency plans. In November 2025, the U.S. launched Operation Southern Spare, deploying the USS Ford carrier strike group near Venezuela to maintain a substantial military presence in the region. By December 2025, Trump had ordered a complete and total blockade on all U.S.-sanctioned oil tankers entering or leaving Venezuela, further escalating regional tensions. On January 4, 2026, U.S. Secretary of State Rubio publicly stated that the U.S. would continue targeting vessels suspected of drug trafficking, seize sanctioned ships, maintain military deployments near Venezuelan waters, and persist in pressuring the Venezuelan government. Facing America's maximum pressure campaign, the Maduro government has repeatedly issued strong warnings, cautioning the U.S. against repeating the mistakes made in Libya and Afghanistan. Yet the U.S. has paid no heed, as its true objectives have never been drug interdiction, democracy, or human rights. These are merely pretexts to mask its resource plundering agenda. President Trump has long been blunt. The U.S. seeks to exploit Venezuela's abundant oil reserves and deeply intervene in its energy sector. At its core, this conflict is a struggle for hegemonic control over resources. By late 2025 to early 2026, Venezuela stood on the precipice of its fate. U.S. warships prowled its surrounding waters. Fighter jets circled its skies, and the military strikes of January 2026 plunged the nation into dire straits. The expansionist logic of hegemony weaves an invisible net, tightly ensnaring this South American country as imperial greed shows no sign of abating. The future of Venezuela's 30 million citizens became shrouded in uncertainty, as the nation's fate entered its most intense and critical phase. Amid the smoke of conflict in the Caribbean, distant Thailand along the Chao Phraya River in Southeast Asia faced a crucial diplomatic decision. On November 13, 2025, a special aircraft from Bangkok touched down smoothly at Beijing Airport. As the cabin door opened, Thailand's reigning king Maha Vajiralongkorn Roma X, dressed in military uniform and wearing a smile, descended the gangway at a measured pace. This moment was destined to be etched into the annals of Sino-Thai diplomatic history. It marked the first time a Thai monarch had set foot on Chinese soil since the establishment of diplomatic relations in 1975. And King Rama X's inaugural state visit to a major world power since his accession to the throne. Since his reign began, King Rama X has faced persistent controversy and conducted few state visits abroad. Why did he choose to visit China at this sensitive juncture? What is the core objective of this visit? Was it an impromptu decision or a long-planned strategy? To unravel these questions, we must trace the historical context, examining Thailand's diplomatic legacy, its current challenges, and its future considerations. King Rama X's father, King Rama X Bhumibol Adulyadej, held a godlike status in the hearts of the Thai people. Reigning for 70 years, he was the world's second longest-serving monarch. During Thailand's turbulent periods, he served as an anchor of stability, repeatedly diffusing political crises through his prestige and wisdom to uphold national unity. To the Thai people, Bhumibol was a father-like figure and the nation's spiritual pillar. When China and Thailand established diplomatic relations in 1975, the world was still entrenched in the Cold War rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union. At that time, Thailand served as America's primary non-NATO ally in Southeast Asia, acting as a crucial bulwark against the spread of communism in the region. Within this geopolitical framework, every state visit by the head of state carried profound significance, directly impacting alignment with opposing blocs. King Bhumibol demonstrated a vision that transcended his era. Instead of visiting China personally, he dispatched his daughter, Princess Sirindhorn, as his private representative. Princess Sirindhorn subsequently visited China over a dozen times, becoming a symbol and bridge of Sino-Thai friendship. Through this approach, Bhumibol skillfully maintained Thailand's balance between the two superpowers, vividly embodying the nation's bamboo diplomacy philosophy, adapting flexibly to external environments, like bamboo, while steadfastly preserving its own foundations. Rama X, however, exhibits a starkly different governing style from his father, Bhumibol. While Bhumibol was known for his diligent governance and deep affection for his people, frequently visiting rural villages to understand their hardships and earning their devotion through his actions, becoming a perfect, selfless protector in their hearts. Rama X has a more flamboyant personality. He spends most of his time in Germany and intervenes in domestic politics in a more forceful and direct manner. This approach has sparked considerable debate among Thailand's younger generation, compelling him to prove himself through concrete actions and consolidate royal authority. It is against this backdrop that Rama X chose to depart from the domestic political center during a critical period for strengthening his authority, embarking on his first state visit to China. The reason is straightforward. Thailand faces dual challenges, and China may hold the key to helping Thailand navigate these difficulties. The first challenge is political fragmentation. Contemporary Thai society is deeply divided by generational conflict and ideological rifts, crystallizing into two opposing camps. One comprises conservative forces, the military, the monarchy, and traditional elites who seek to preserve the existing social order and power structure. The other is the emerging political force represented by the Future Forward Party, backed by thousands of young people dissatisfied with the status quo. They call for political reform and even dare to touch upon the most sensitive topic of the monarchy. In last year's Thai elections, the Future Forward Party emerged as a dark horse, gaining significant support from young voters. However, traditional forces ultimately obstructed them through various means, preventing them from successfully forming a government. This incident acted like a key, unlocking the Pandora's box of Thailand's deep-seated social contradictions. The ongoing political infighting not only drains the nation's resources but also subjects the monarchy's authority to unprecedented challenges. King Rama X is well aware that harsh measures alone cannot quell social discontent. To win public approval and achieve national stability, tangible development outcomes must be delivered: economic prosperity and improved living standards for the people. Many conflicts would naturally resolve themselves. Yet Thailand's economic development now faces a second predicament, having stalled. As one of the former Asian tigers, Thailand's economy heavily relies on three pillars: exports, tourism, and foreign investment. In recent years, however, all three have shown significant signs of weakness. Sluggish global economic recovery has drastically reduced Thailand's export orders. The pandemic dealt a devastating blow to tourism, which, though showing signs of recovery, remains far below its peak levels. More critically, foreign investment growth lacks momentum and is even shifting toward countries like Vietnam and Indonesia with lower labor costs. Amid political turmoil and a stalled economic engine, King Rama X must proactively seek a breakthrough path for Thailand and identify new growth drivers. Globally, China stands as the optimal choice, possessing both the capability to aid Thailand's economic recovery and the willingness to collaborate. Thus, King Rama X's visit to China carries clear objectives, transcending mere diplomatic exchanges. He brings with him an extensive cooperation agenda and national development blueprint, embodying Thailand's future aspirations. Topping this list is the highly anticipated Kra Canal project and its alternative, the Integrated Road Bridge Complex. The strategic significance of this initiative rivals that of an Eastern Panama Canal. As is widely known, nearly half of the world's oil transportation and trade passes through the Strait of Malacca, whose control has long been firmly held by the United States. Located at Thailand's southernmost narrowest point, the Kra Isthmus offers a strategic opportunity. Constructing a canal here, or building a railroad, and pipeline network linking the Indian Ocean to the Pacific would enable vessels to bypass the Strait of Malacca entirely, shortening voyages by at least 1,200 kilometers. For China, this project would significantly enhance energy and trade security, effectively preventing potential choke points imposed by other nations in the Strait of Malacca during extreme circumstances. For Thailand, it represents a century-long vision. Once realized, the country could transform from an ordinary Southeast Asian nation into a world-class shipping hub. Annual tolls and service fees alone would generate substantial revenue, while also creating numerous jobs in driving economic development in surrounding areas. Yet despite being proposed over a century ago, the project has never materialized. The core reasons lie in its immense scale, staggering investment requirements, and extremely high political risks. Globally, only China possesses the technology, capital, and commitment to advance this endeavor. Consequently, deep cooperation on the Kra Isthmus road bridge complex became a central negotiation topic during the Thai king's visit to China. This project transcends ordinary economic collaboration. It is a mega-engineering initiative capable of fundamentally reshaping the region's geopolitical landscape. The second major item on the agenda is the China-Thailand High-Speed Rail project. This line, originating from Kunming in China, traverses Laos to the south and ultimately reaches Bangkok, Thailand's capital. It serves as a crucial segment of the central route of the Trans-Asian Railway and stands as a flagship cooperative initiative under the Belt and Road Initiative. Currently, the China-Laos Railway has commenced operations with remarkable economic benefits, successfully transforming landlocked Laos into a land-linked nation. However, the Thai segment of the China-Thailand High-Speed Railway has progressed relatively slowly due to various domestic factors. One key objective of King Rama X's personal visit to China is to overcome domestic political resistance and press the accelerator for this Golden Corridor project. Once the entire China-Thailand high-speed rail line is completed, the flow of people, goods, and capital between China and the entire Indochina Peninsula will become highly efficient and unimpeded. Thailand's position as a regional transportation hub will be unprecedentedly consolidated, and its economic development will gain a powerful boost. The third agenda item focuses on more pragmatic tourism and investment cooperation. Chinese tourists once accounted for half of Thailand's tourism revenue, playing a crucial role in sustaining the industry. King Rama X's personal visit itself sends a strong signal of goodwill, conveying to the Chinese public that Thailand is safe and welcomes Chinese tourists. This message is indispensable for attracting Chinese tourists back and revitalizing Thailand's tourism sector. Simultaneously, Thailand urgently requires substantial Chinese investment, particularly in emerging sectors like electric vehicles, the digital economy, and green energy. Chinese automakers such as BYD and Great Wall have already established manufacturing facilities in Thailand, positioning the country as a production hub for the broader Southeast Asian market. King Rama X's visit also sends a clear message to Chinese entrepreneurs. Thailand welcomes Chinese investment, and the royal family will fully support cooperation between Chinese and Thai enterprises. Another often overlooked yet crucial topic is military cooperation. For decades, Thailand primarily relied on the United States for military equipment. However, in recent years, Thailand has significantly increased its procurement of weapons and equipment from China. The most representative examples include the VT-4 main battle tank and the highly anticipated S-26T conventional submarine project. Although the submarine project encountered some setbacks due to engine issues, this very fact demonstrates that Sino-Thai military cooperation has already penetrated core domains. King Rama X himself comes from a military background, making his emphasis on military cooperation self-evident. This visit to China is likely to further advance bilateral collaboration in military technology exchange and joint exercises, elevating Sino-Thai military cooperation to a new level. From monumental projects like the Kra Isthmus Bridge to the China-Thailand High-Speed Rail, tourism investments, and military cooperation, it is clear that King Rama X's visit to China is comprehensive and strategic in nature. He seeks not only China's financial backing but also access to its market, advanced technologies, development solutions, and the robust national execution capability and developmental certainty China embodies. So why now? Why is it King Rama X who has made decisions his father never did? The answer is simple. The times have changed. During King Bhumibol's era, the world was unipolar, dominated by the United States. For a small country like Thailand, the optimal diplomatic strategy was to cling tightly to America's skirt, maintain distance from the other superpower, the Soviet Union, and adopt a friendly yet cautiously observant stance toward the rising China. Today, however, we stand at the threshold of a once-in-a-century transformation. America's global influence is in relative decline, and its commitments to allies increasingly ring hollow. While the U.S. needs allies, it increasingly treats them as pawns and cannon fodder to contain rivals, rather than genuinely supporting their development. Observe how the U.S. has exploited European interests in the Russia-Ukraine conflict and its strategic retrenchment in the Middle East. All developments Thailand has closely monitored. Though the ship of the United States still appears luxurious, the ticket price keeps rising while service quality deteriorates. Worse still, the captain occasionally treats allies as shields to be jettisoned overboard. In stark contrast, China's rise has become an unstoppable trend of our times. China advocates building a community with a shared future for mankind, advances the Belt and Road Initiative, and upholds a foreign policy of win-win cooperation. China needs friends, but its approach to friendship is to get rich. First build roads, make money together, and mutual respect without interfering in each other's internal affairs. The giant vessel next door, the China, boasts powerful engines and a clear course. Its captain warmly invites partners from all nations to board and sail together toward the shores of prosperity and development. Faced with these two starkly different vessels, Thailand's choice has long been clear. The essence of Thailand's bamboo diplomacy has never been to cling rigidly to a single tree, but to always grow toward the direction of the sun's warmest rays and the most abundant rain. Today, the rising sun in the east is undeniably warmer and more radiant. Therefore, King Rama X's visit to China represents not only a major strategic judgment on the international landscape by Thailand's head of state, but also a subtle choosing sides, more accurately, a strategic investment in the future. He is investing in China's national destiny and, more importantly, Thailand's future. Through this visit, he has sent a clear signal to the world. Thailand will integrate more deeply and comprehensively into the new Asian order led by China. The follow-up effects of King Rama X's visit began to materialize as early as December 2025, less than a month after the visit concluded. China and Thailand jointly announced the establishment of a joint working group for the Kra Isthmus Road and Bridge Integrated Project, comprising experts from both nations' transportation and energy sectors. The group is tasked with conducting feasibility studies, planning, and design for the project's preliminary stages. At the joint working group's inauguration ceremony, Thai Prime Minister Shretha Thavisin explicitly stated that this project represents a core extension of Thailand's Eastern Economic Corridor strategy. It will drive economic development in the southern region and advance the goal of balanced regional development nationwide. According to preliminary estimates released by Thailand's Ministry of Finance, if the integrated road bridge project proceeds smoothly, the total investment is projected to reach $50 billion. China will provide $30 billion in medium to long-term, low-interest loans through channels such as the Silk Road Fund and the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, with the remaining funds jointly covered by the Thai government and private capital. The Sino-Thai High-Speed Rail project also achieved substantive progress following the visit to China. In mid-December 2025, the State Railway of Thailand and China Railway International Co., Ltd. formally signed a supplementary agreement for the Bangkok-Khon section of the Sino-Thai High-Speed Rail. This agreement confirmed the adoption of Chinese high-speed rail standards, increasing train speeds to 250 km per hour and shortening the project timeline from 8 to 5 years. To resolve land acquisition issues that had previously hindered progress, King Rama X personally ordered the establishment of a dedicated task force, led by members of the royal family. This group coordinated relations between local governments and residents, completing 85% of land acquisition along the route within just 1 month. Thailand's Transport Minister Sasayang revealed that construction design plans for the Bangkok to Khon section of the Sino-Thai High-Speed Rail have been finalized. Construction will commence in March 2026, with operations expected to begin in 2031 upon completion. Travel time between Bangkok and Khon will be reduced from the current 4 hours to just 1.5 hours, significantly enhancing regional transportation efficiency. The Kra Isthmus project has drawn significant international attention. During a parliamentary session in December 2025, Singaporean Prime Minister Heng Swee Keat acknowledged that if realized, the Kra Isthmus Road Bridge project could impact the strategic shipping status of the Strait of Malacca. However, Singapore will proactively adjust its development strategies. strengthen cooperation with Thailand and China, and jointly build a regional shipping network. Meanwhile, the U.S. State Department stated in a declaration that it monitors the project's potential implications for regional security and the environment, implying potential geopolitical risks. Indeed, U.S. concerns are not unfounded. Once completed, the Kra Isthmus project would divert nearly half of global oil shipments away from the Strait of Malacca. This would weaken America's strategic leverage in controlling energy security for Asian nations through its dominance of the strait. The core reason behind its long-standing opposition to the project. Progress in military cooperation also warrants attention. In late December 2025, China and Thailand conducted the Blue Strike 2025 joint military exercise in the Gulf of Thailand. Participating forces included China's Type 05 for a frigate, Thailand's Narai Songkran-class frigate, and other vessels, alongside marine units from both nations. The exercise focused on joint anti-submarine warfare, maritime search and rescue, and counterterrorism operations, further enhancing the coordinated combat capabilities of both navies. Thai Defense Minister Suthin revealed that both sides are negotiating the procurement of a second batch of VT-4 main battle tanks and exploring technical solutions for the S-26T conventional submarine project. China will provide technical support to Thailand to help resolve issues related to submarine engines. While observing the exercise, King Rama X stated that Sino-Thai military cooperation is a vital force for maintaining regional peace and stability, and Thailand will continue to deepen military exchanges and cooperation with China. Achievements in tourism and investment cooperation are more tangible. During King Rama X's visit to China, both sides signed a memorandum of understanding on promoting tourism cooperation. Designating 2026 as the China-Thailand Tourism Friendship Year, China will streamline visa procedures for Thai group tours, while Thailand will extend its visa-free entry policy for Chinese tourists until the end of 2026. Data shows that in December 2025, the number of Chinese tourists visiting Thailand reached 850,000, a 40% increase from November, recovering to 60% of the same period in 2019. Thailand's Ministry of Tourism and Sports forecasts that with the implementation of initiatives under the China-Thailand Tourism Friendship Year, the number of Chinese tourists visiting Thailand will exceed 10 million in 2026, driving tourism revenue growth of over 30%. On the investment front, following the conclusion of the visit to China, BYD announced an additional $1 billion investment in Thailand's Eastern Economic Corridor to build a second electric vehicle production base, with an expected annual capacity of 300,000 vehicles. The facility will primarily supply the Southeast Asian market. Meanwhile, Great Wall Motors partnered with Thailand's state-owned oil company to jointly establish a new energy vehicle battery production base. The project, with a total investment of $500 million, is slated for completion and operation by 2027. Turning to the Caribbean region, the U.S. military strike against Venezuela sparked strong international reactions. On January 6, 2026, the Organization of American States convened a special session on Venezuela's situation, where multiple nations strongly condemned the U.S. military action. The representative from Uruguay explicitly stated that the U.S. actions violated international law and the fundamental principles established by the UN Charter and the OAS Charter, constituting a grave infringement upon Venezuela's sovereignty and territorial integrity. The Chilean representative called for resolving the Venezuelan issue through a peaceful, gradual, and inclusive process, opposing military intervention as it would set a dangerous precedent and escalate regional tensions. The Brazilian representative characterized Maduro's forced detention as kidnapping, pointing out that U.S. actions have crossed an unacceptable line and set an extremely dangerous precedent for the international community. Thailand's diplomatic pivot is not an isolated occurrence but reflects profound shifts in Southeast Asia's geopolitical landscape. In recent years, as China's economic strength and international influence have grown, an increasing number of Southeast Asian nations have begun adjusting their diplomatic strategies to strengthen cooperation with China. In 2025, Indonesia signed an agreement with China for the second phase of the Jakarta-Bandung high-speed rail project. Malaysia announced its participation in the Digital Economy Cooperation Alliance under the Belt and Road Initiative framework. Vietnam reached an agreement with China to upgrade their cross-border economic cooperation zones. These nations' choices mirror Thailand's, as they recognize the opportunities presented by China's development and seek to advance their own progress through collaboration. Meanwhile, U.S. influence in Southeast Asia has gradually waned. Its Indo-Pacific strategy, driven primarily by containing China, has failed to deliver tangible development opportunities for Southeast Asian nations. In 2025, U.S. investment in Southeast Asia dropped by 12% year-on-year, while Chinese investment in the region grew by 15%, a stark contrast. U.S. military intervention also faced fierce resistance from Venezuelan citizens. After Maduro was forcibly removed, large-scale protests erupted nationwide. Citizens waved national flags and portraits of Maduro, chanting slogans like "Oppose aggression" and "Free Maduro" while gathering at key locations such as the Presidential Palace and the National Assembly building. The Venezuelan military issued a statement vowing to resolutely defend national sovereignty and territorial integrity, condemning U.S. aggression, and calling on the entire nation to unite against foreign interference. Defense Minister Padrino declared the military had entered maximum combat readiness, pledging to take all necessary measures to defend the country and vowing to decisively repel any foreign invasion. Meanwhile, divisions emerged within Venezuela's opposition. Some opposition figures argued that U.S. military intervention violated democratic principles, publicly condemning U.S. actions and calling for peaceful resolution of domestic disputes. Beyond the Organization of American States, the United Nations Security Council also convened an emergency meeting on January 5, 2026, to address the situation in Venezuela. At the meeting, permanent members including Russia and China expressed firm opposition to U.S. military actions. Russian permanent representative to the UN Nebenzia stated that U.S. actions constitute typical hegemonic behavior, seriously violating fundamental principles of international law. He demanded the immediate release of President Maduro and his wife, cessation of military intervention in Venezuela, and withdrawal of military forces from the country's periphery. Zhang Zhan, China's permanent representative to the UN, emphasized that the sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity of all nations must be respected. No country has the right to interfere in another's internal affairs under any pretext. The international community should persist in resolving Venezuela's issues through dialogue and consultation, opposing the use or threat of force. However, due to U.S. obstruction, the Security Council failed to pass a resolution condemning the U.S. military actions. From an economic perspective, the U.S. military strike against Venezuela triggered severe volatility in the international oil market. As the country with the world's largest proven oil reserves, the stability of Venezuela's oil industry directly impacts global oil supply. Following the military strike, international oil prices surged by 15% within just 3 days, reaching $85 per barrel. Multiple international energy agencies have issued warnings that continued instability in Venezuela could lead to global oil supply shortages, further driving up prices. While U.S. oil companies attempted to seize Venezuelan oil resources, their efforts were hindered by the Venezuelan military's control over key oil fields and refineries, coupled with widespread international condemnation of U.S. actions. Moreover, U.S. blockades and sanctions had already drastically reduced Venezuela's oil production, and the military strike further crippled its oil industry, making a swift return to normal production unlikely. The U.S. plan to install a pro-American regime in Venezuela also faces obstacles. After the U.S. military took control of Maduro, it attempted to push opposition leader Guaido into power to form a transitional government. However, Guaido enjoys extremely low domestic support in Venezuela and has lost public trust after multiple failed coup attempts. Moreover, Venezuela's military has remained loyal to the legitimate government, refusing to recognize Guaido's interim presidency, which has stalled U.S. efforts. Crucially, most nations in the international community have refused to recognize the U.S.-backed transitional government, insisting that Maduro's administration is Venezuela's lawful government. This has left the U.S. diplomatically isolated. Notably, domestic opposition to this military operation is intensifying within the United States. Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren publicly criticized the Trump administration's actions as reckless and dangerous, arguing that military intervention in Venezuela would drag the U.S. into a new quagmire of war and damage its international standing. Some Republican lawmakers also questioned the necessity of military action, suggesting the U.S. should focus its energy on domestic economic development and improving people's livelihoods rather than foreign military intervention. Public opposition within the United States has intensified, with protests erupting in multiple cities demanding the government halt military actions against Venezuela and withdraw its troops. According to a January 7, 2026 CNN poll, 58% of Americans oppose military action against Venezuela, while only 32% express support. The US's hegemonic actions have triggered a chain reaction across Latin America. Several Latin American nations are bolstering their defense capabilities and enhancing their security frameworks to counter potential external interference. Argentina, Bolivia, Ecuador, and others have announced strengthened regional cooperation, establishing a Latin American mutual aid alliance to collectively resist external meddling. The Latin American Nations Alliance issued a statement condemning U.S. military actions against Venezuela and calling on Latin American countries to unite in safeguarding regional peace and stability. Cuban leader Díaz-Canel affirmed Cuba's unwavering support for the Venezuelan people's struggle against aggression, pledging to provide necessary assistance to Venezuela. Nicaraguan President Daniel Ortega also declared that U.S. actions pose a threat to the entire Latin American region, urging Latin American nations to collectively resist U.S. hegemony. Deepening China-Thailand cooperation has also propelled regional economic integration. In December 2025, China and Thailand, together with Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, and other nations, jointly signed the development plan for the Indo-China Peninsula Economic Corridor. This plan explicitly outlines the construction of a transportation network connecting China with countries across the Indochina Peninsula, using the China-Thailand High-Speed Railway as its backbone to promote the liberalization and facilitation of trade, investment, and people-to-people exchanges within the region. The plan projects that by 2030, trade volume within the economic corridor will reach $500 billion, doubling the 2025 figure. Chinese Commerce Minister Wang Wentao stated that the economic corridor is a vital component of the Belt and Road Initiative, and China will continue to increase investment in its development to advance shared regional economic growth. In contrast, Thailand's economy has gradually turned a corner following King Rama X's state visit to China. In the fourth quarter of 2025, Thailand's GDP grew by 2.3% year-on-year, an increase of 0.8 percentage points from the previous quarter. Tourism contributed 18% to this growth, up 5 percentage points from the third quarter. The return of Chinese tourists has spurred recovery in Thailand's hotel, catering, and retail sectors. Hotel occupancy rates in popular destinations like Bangkok and Phuket have rebounded to over 70% of their 2019 levels. In the investment sector, Chinese investment in Thailand grew by 22% year-on-year in the fourth quarter of 2025, primarily concentrated in emerging industries such as electric vehicles, the digital economy, and green energy, creating numerous jobs in Thailand. Data from Thailand's Ministry of Labor showed that the unemployment rate dropped to 2.1% in December 2025, a decrease of 0.3 percentage points from November, marking the lowest level in nearly 3 years. From a global geopolitical perspective, the turmoil in Venezuela and Thailand's diplomatic pivot clearly illustrate two major trends shaping the contemporary world. First, hegemonic actions face growing resistance and opposition from an increasing number of nations, with the international community increasingly calling for the upholding of international law and fundamental norms of international relations. Second, the trend toward multipolarity continues to strengthen, as emerging market economies and developing countries rise to play an increasingly vital role in global affairs. The United States' attempts to maintain its global hegemony through military intervention have not only failed to achieve their intended objectives, but have also drawn widespread condemnation from the international community, further eroding its global influence. In contrast, China's commitment to a development philosophy of win-win cooperation and mutual benefit has gained recognition and support from an increasing number of countries, positioning China as a significant force driving reforms in the global governance system. In the realm of cultural exchange, China and Thailand have also leveraged the China-Thailand Tourism Year to launch a series of diverse and vibrant activities. In January 2026, the China Culture Year event opened in Bangkok, Thailand, showcasing Chinese cultural treasures including traditional calligraphy, paintings, ceramics, and opera. It attracted over 100,000 Thai visitors. Thailand will reciprocate by hosting the Thailand Culture Year in China during the second half of 2026, featuring traditional Thai dance, cuisine, handicrafts, and other cultural highlights. Educational cooperation between China and Thailand continues to deepen. By the end of 2025, 15 Thai universities had established Chinese language programs, with the number of exchange students between the two countries reaching 50,000, a 60% increase from 2020. Thailand's future holds immense opportunities. By deepening cooperation with China, Thailand stands to overcome political instability and economic stagnation, achieving national stability and development. King Rama X's diplomatic choices have not only brought tangible development opportunities to Thailand but also set an example for Southeast Asian nations. Amidst the current global headwinds against globalization and the resurgence of hegemonic tendencies, upholding multilateralism and strengthening international cooperation remains the correct path for national development. The successful practice of China-Thailand cooperation will also inject new momentum into advancing the Belt and Road Initiative, promoting the concept of building a community with a shared future for mankind to take root in Southeast Asia. For Venezuela, the road ahead is fraught with challenges. Whether the Maduro government can regain control of the national situation, whether international mediation efforts will prove effective, and whether the United States will escalate military intervention, these questions will all shape Venezuela's destiny. Yet it is certain that the Venezuelan people's resolve to defend national sovereignty and territorial integrity remains unshaken, and the international community's efforts to uphold regional peace and stability will not cease. As Latin American nations strengthen their solidarity, U.S. hegemonic actions will ultimately be curbed, and the Venezuelan issue must be resolved through peaceful negotiations. Indeed, the trajectories of Venezuela and Thailand offer profound lessons for other developing nations. For resource-rich developing countries, the critical question is how to rationally develop and utilize resources while safeguarding national sovereignty, thereby achieving economic growth and improving people's livelihoods. Venezuela's experience demonstrates that over-reliance on a single resource while neglecting economic diversification inevitably leads to vulnerability. Blind confrontation or dependence on external powers only plunges a nation into deeper crisis. Thailand's practice, however, proves that adhering to an independent foreign policy, choosing a development path suited to national conditions, and strengthening cooperation with emerging market economies are essential for achieving national stability and progress. As 2026 unfolds, the smoke of conflict in the Caribbean stands in stark contrast to the opportunities along the Chao Phraya River. These two hemispheric contests of destiny not only shape the futures of individual nations but profoundly influence the evolution of the global geopolitical landscape. The aggressive expansion of hegemonic powers will ultimately prove futile. The concept of win-win cooperation remains the prevailing trend of our era. Amidst a century of unprecedented transformation, every nation is making its own choices. These choices will converge into a torrent propelling global progress, writing a new chapter in human civilization. For China, the situation in Venezuela and Thailand's diplomatic pivot present both challenges and opportunities. China should continue adhering to the principle of non-interference in other countries' internal affairs, actively promote a peaceful resolution to the Venezuelan issue, and play a constructive role in safeguarding regional peace and stability. Simultaneously, China should deepen cooperation with Southeast Asian nations like Thailand, advance the high-quality development of the Belt and Road Initiative, and achieve mutual benefit and win-win outcomes. On the global stage, China must continue advocating multilateralism, opposing hegemony and power politics, and join forces with other emerging market economies and developing countries to build a community with a shared future for mankind, thereby making greater contributions to world peace and development. In international cooperation, developing countries should strengthen solidarity and collaboration to jointly resist interference and exploitation by external forces. Regional mutual assistance among Latin American nations and the integration process in Southeast Asia represent valuable initiatives. By establishing regional cooperation mechanisms, developing countries can pool resources, leverage complementary strengths, enhance their international voice and influence, and better safeguard their legitimate rights and interests. Simultaneously, developing countries should actively participate in reforming the global governance system, promoting the establishment of a more equitable and reasonable international order that better reflects their interests and aspirations. Looking ahead, the evolution of the global geopolitical landscape will become increasingly complex and volatile, with the struggle between hegemony and multilateralism persisting for the long term. Yet regardless of how the international situation changes, peace and development remain the defining themes of our era, and win-win cooperation remains the shared aspiration of all peoples. The smoke of conflict in Venezuela will eventually dissipate, and the blossoms of cooperation along the Chao Phraya River will grow ever more vibrant. All of this will bear witness to the gradual emergence of a new international order that is more equitable, just, and inclusive.